Hey guys, and welcome back. In this video I'm going to be talking about what I've been working on over the past month since my last video. Since I talk about both my Admech Diorama and creating Thunder Warriors, I've added some sections in the timeline so you can skip straight to the part that interests you. Last time we looked at part 1 of my Adeptus Mechanicus diorama. Although I plan on making a video going into exactly what work has been done on the diorama, I'll give you a little update on what else has been added. First off, I've applied a selection of washes since our last visit. An all-over coat of Null Oil, followed by a coat of AK Interactive's dark brown enamel wash. When I applied the dark brown oil wash, I allowed it to dry for 15 minutes, and then went over it with a makeup sponge and some mineral spirit, to remove it from some of the raised areas. Once the oil wash had fully dried, I got to work applying some dirty down rust effect. I will admit, because I'm new to using this product, I did have to experiment with finding an application method that dried to a standard I was happy with. What I settled on was shaking the pot for about 2 minutes and then applying quite thickly with a brush. Once applied over the area I wanted to look rusty, I would go over these spots with a fairly large brush loaded with water to kickstart the reaction from the paint. I also used some little sponges to mop up any excess. I have to admit, I was thoroughly happy with the end result once the paint had dried. The rust really helps to convey the age of the machinery in the diorama. The same method was used on both the floor and the wall of the project. Once I'd coated both the base and the wall of the diorama in rust, I decided to focus my attention on the floor first. I really wanted to make sure that my project included some colour, and didn't just comprise of rusted metal. The walkway panels glued to the base provided the perfect place to start incorporating said colour. I wanted to get a nice layer of block colour down that I could work from without having to use a paintbrush, and end up spending the next 7 years painting it. I figured my best course of action would be to use masking tape to cover everything I didn't want to be painted, then go over the base with a spray can. This process was another first for me, proving that I'm quite the unexperienced hobbyist. Applying the masking tape took slightly longer than I had expected, as I had to cut out tape for each square grid within the walkway. After what I estimate to be about 3 hours, and not the 3 days it felt like, the base for the diorama was ready to be spray painted. I feel that the colour red and the Adeptus Mechanicus go hand in hand, so I decided to spray the miniature with a coat of Citadel's Blood Angel Red. I don't think I can convey how satisfying this next part was, but removing masking tape to reveal straight and perfect lines really does make you feel that all the time cutting masking tape is worth it. One thing I have to mention whilst on the subject of this diorama is the truly awesome collaboration with a very talented fellow hobbyist. Nurbsters currently constructing a magnificent tech priest that's going to feature in the project. Here's a little peek at what he's been working on. Nurbsters also been posting a steady stream of updates over on his Instagram, and I would encourage you to check it out. I've left a link to his work in the description. Now we arrive at the final stage before the distractions took hold. Prior to adding any washes or weathering to the floor, I wanted to get stuck in and apply some Admech decals. I managed to grab a few partially looted transfer sheets from eBay that I knew would look just right on the project. My idea behind adding the decals before the washes and weathering was so that they will blend in much better with the overall detail of the diorama if they too are weathered and damaged. Adding fresh, pristine decals after the fact would just look strange. So I got a quarter of a way adding distraction. I'm making these now. Okay, now we're in full Thunder Warrior making territory. This is another project that I've had brewing for quite some time, but I've only just started to bring it to fruition. I've seen many hobbyists here on YouTube and over on Instagram use Stormcast Eternals as a base for their Thunder Warriors, and I decided to follow their lead. I started off by using a box of Stormcast Liberators as a base to work with. Coincidentally, the Liberator bodies work very well with Mark III Space Marine arms and shoulder pads, with very little adjusting required. As I mentioned in one of my Instagram posts, I am not a master kit basher, so therefore I wanted to find some miniature parts that slotted together rather easily, and these two kits did just the trick. In the lore, it's stated that the Legio Contagious used an archaic type of proto-bolter. I really wanted this to be reflected in the conversion, so set about looking for a bolter-style weapon that I could use. I did consider using some Mark III Space Marine bolters, which to be fair would have made my life a hell of a lot easier, but instead I opted for some Gorka Morka Orc bolters. Odd choice, you might be asking, and you would be right. These aren't particularly easy to get hold of, but I feel that the weapon has a lot in common with the bolters used by the Imperium, and its fairly crude design lends itself well to be used as a representative for an early proto-bolter. I took some time to drill out the ends of the bolt guns to make it look as though they could actually shoot. I'm sure this will make some of my Instagram commenters happy. Alright, so on to the heads. For these I decided to use a mix of Space Marine and Cadian heads. Thunder Warriors sport a very iconic look with their visored helmet and plume. The ideal head to recreate this was by far this Cadian helmet from the Cadian Heavy Weapons team set. I cut off some protrusions from the back of the head, as well as cutting and filing down the Aquila from the front of the helmet. When it comes to plumes, I chose to use some top knots, ironically looted from the old Orc Boys set, and, you guessed it, some Mark III Space Marine plumes. As well as incorporating some pieces from the recently released Age of Darkness box set, I have also noticed the decal sheet has a couple of what appear to be Raptor Imperialis transfers, which fit perfectly onto the miniature's shoulder pads. Finally, for the back of the miniature, I used a Mark III Space Marine backpack, since I'd already pillaged a lot from that kit anyway. When it came to painting these miniatures up, I decided to go with gold, as I'd seen it a lot in the art depicting Thunder Warriors. Overall, I'm very pleased with these so far, and I still have many more to paint and build. It's been an enjoyable little, or big, distraction project, depending on which way you look at it. Let's look at what the miniatures look like so far. I really enjoy the lore behind the Unification Wars, and I've received quite a few positive comments about my conversions on social media. I would love to see everyone else's take on Thunder Warriors, or anything based on Unification Era Terra. If you feel like sharing your work, use the hashtag UnificationAppreciation to share your miniatures, and I'll feature a few of my favourites in the next video. That hashtag is just about annoying enough to remember. Also, if you have any questions about my projects, feel free to post a comment here on YouTube or over on Instagram. We currently have a 6,000 followers giveaway on Instagram, so if you're interested, head over and take a look. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, unless I get distracted.